Well, I had an experience. I went to have my neck looked at, and they said that I have like a neck spasm or muscle spasm kind of thing. Um, it's still quite painful. Um, I'm pretty stiff, but um, and it was really weird because it changed a lot. So, like when I was at home, the pain was like down, like the back of my neck down into my shoulder, and then when I went to the medical center, I ended up like turning my head, and then I heard all of this cracking in my neck, and then suddenly I was getting pain down the base of my skull, all the way down my cervical spine, like all the way down to like the in between my shoulder blades. And then I was getting pain down like each of my shoulders and neck and down into my like wrist, radiating down into my wrist. And hoping that doesn't come back. I'm I took an Aleve to help with the pain. They did offer like muscle relaxers or whatever, but I opted not to do that. I don't typically like to take heavy stuff because I am, well, I don't like how it makes me feel. I like to be in control, I guess. And I also am yeah, I just don't like to take medicine, and yeah, I don't, yeah, anyways, so I just didn't do that. I'm going to try to ice it and etc. Do more natural stuff for it. But I was going to say, yeah, it was really weird, and I'm pretty sure like I've experienced it before when I just forget like sensations and etc. But there was one point where like my neck and down between my shoulders just started burning like so much. So that was weird. I had also like talked to them about like the dizziness, and or I had presented that as one of the issues. But when I was laying back, I wasn't dizzy, and so when the doctor came, I didn't really discuss dizziness with him. And then whenever I was discharged, I tried to stand up, and I was really, really dizzy. And so I was like, wondering whether or not I was concussive, like, or like what the dizziness was, but like, and nobody had really investigated that piece. So I asked the nurse if they could check, and they said, excuse me, they said that they would call the doctor back. Doctor never came back. I ended up calling the nurse back, asking them if they could just quickly look, kind of thing, and put a pulse ox on, like see what my pulse rate is when I'm sitting, standing, kind of thing. Make sure that it's, that if I'm dizzy, that it's due to POTS, or you know, if I'm dizzy because I'm low on sugar, perhaps, provide like a juice or something. Like, I don't know. From my standpoint, from when I was EMT, I would have tried to understand the cause of why the person is dizzy before rushing them out the door. Like, I wouldn't have just rushed them out the door. I would have figured out why they are dizzy and tried to treat that prior to like forcing them out. So like I was trying to explain to the nurse, like, I would really like to know, why I'm dizzy. and try to have, find a little bit of a solution. Like before because I'm really dizzy trying to stand up. Like I'm telling him, like when I'm standing up, my lips are feeling tingly. Like I'm feeling tingly, and I'm feeling really dizzy. And he was saying that they don't do diagnosis for concussions anymore, and that they don't do and I was like, excuse me, like, and I told him, when I was EMT, we would use a flashlight to check to see whether or not the eyes were reactive, and whether or not the pupils would dilate and etc. correctly, because that will tell you kind of what's kind of going on, if there is potentially something going on concussively, which is important for the patient to know, and for the doctor to know, and for their loved ones to know. But he said that they don't diagnose concussion, and they don't treat concussion anymore, and they don't tell people not to go to sleep when they go home anymore when they have a concussion, and they don't tell anybody what to look out for or anything like that. I don't know, they don't treat it anymore. So he was like, not gonna do the flashlight, not gonna check my eyes to see if they were equal and not reactive and reactive or whatever. And he said that they weren't worried of any bleed or whatever. And then he accused me of devaluing or something the work that they did, and I tried to explain to him that it's not my intention. My intention is to find a solution so that I can get home, because I want to get home, but I'm very dizzy, and so and because I have had TBIs in the past, it's very important for me to know if I do have a concussion, and if I'm POTSy, I need to know whether I'm if I am having POTS, if I'm having a POTS episode, so that I can drink water and get some salts in me. And if it's not either of those, and I'm still dizzy, and if something like blood sugar, then maybe I need a juice or something to help me be able to stand up to walk out of here, kind of thing. I was, but he said that he would he could call the doctor or something. He said that they had already discharged me, and he said that I'm more than happy to get you guys some food or whatever, and I explained to him we have dietary issues, we don't need food. I mean, I probably should have had something, but I doubt they had anything that I could have there. I thought about it later when I was in the car, because the person had a banana. I'm sure they probably had a banana somewhere that would have helped. But anyways, they when you're gluten-free and dairy-free and etc., it's hard. Anyways, they I did ask for the juice, and the juice did help. So I thought, after having the juice, I was like, okay, maybe it's just the blood sugar thing, which I've never had an issue with before. But and they tested my blood, so and they didn't say that I had low blood sugar or anything like that. So I stood up again to try to walk out. He was trying to lead us out. And he didn't check my, to see whether or not I was POTSy or anything. He wasn't going to do anything. It was clear. So and I was getting kind of tired of, experiencing that, the dismissal of my symptoms and the gaslighting. It almost felt like he was trying to, he was treating me as though I was like making up my dizziness or something, or that I was like putting on a show or something. And I don't know, it 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 really rubs you the wrong way when you're sick, and you know what you would do in that situation if you were the caregiver, especially having been a caregiver and an EMT. Like, there's no way I would have treated a patient that way. Like, I would have addressed their concerns, and I wouldn't have let them leave if they were so dizzy without like first finding out whether or not it's blood sugar related, like, and trying to fix whatever it is to the best extent that I could before them leaving. So yeah, but they didn't check they didn't check my blood pressure. They didn't, like, for the POTS thing or my pulse, while I was there in the bedroom. And then when we were leaving, I got really, really woozy and dizzy, and I kept feeling like I was going to fall. And so I stopped. Like, my left side kept almost like buckling. And so I stopped, and then I needed to, like, he told me that I needed to sit, and so I sat, and then he just stood there and waited and watched, like, didn't check my pulse, didn't do anything. And then he was like, okay, well, if you're this dizzy, maybe I should get like a wheelchair, and I'll take you out into the waiting room, and I'll call a taxi, because you probably should be going in a taxi, not, which I appreciated. And so when he went to go get the thing, another nurse, a female nurse, came by, and I asked her to check my pulse, like, while I was sitting and then standing. And she said when I stood, my heart rate greatly increased. I don't know what the pulse was. She didn't give me a read, but she said, oh yeah, it's a bit quick. Like, it's pretty fast. And then they put me in the wheelchair. I asked for another juice, which helped, and then drank some water. Well, more water, because I had some water. Anyways, I got home. I'm still dizzy. Like, when I stand up, at least I'm feeling a bit better. I had some mashed potatoes, which has lots of potassium, and I salted them a lot. So I tried to eat as much as I could with that, which wasn't a lot, but I think it's probably helped. I haven't tried standing up again yet, but I'm going to have to in a few minutes, because it looks like Brinkley's ready to go out, aren't you? Yeah, so that was my adventure. I'm gonna call a fire department tomorrow. So I think just to ask them, if the procedures have changed, for addressing like concussions, etc. Because I just can't imagine that it changed like that. Like, it changed that way. Maybe they weren't treating it. They weren't. I don't know. It kind of felt like there was like a bias. They didn't want to call it whiplash, because I explained the situation of, and that, or what happened, and that I was told that I need to document it. And so when they documented it, like, when the doctor, when he was talking to me, he called it whiplash and like a muscle spasm due to like the whiplash. But then like on the paperwork, it didn't mention like anything about whiplash or anything. Like it mentioned like the muscle, like acute muscle spasm is I think what it said. I don't know. Maybe acute muscle spasm is kind of what kind of happens sometimes when you get whiplash. Anyways, it was an adventure and not, you know, it wasn't like the worst experience, but it just, could, yeah. I mean, the doctor was nice, and the nurses were pleasant. It was just that the end part where when I was ready to leave, because they brought papers and I was really dizzy, that they were very unresponsive. That really felt like crap. Like the way that they treated me, like it really felt like crap. Like I would have never treated like a patient so dismissively. Like, and I would have been like, oh, okay, let's figure this out before, like if you determine that it's POTS and the person is having a POTS episode, you treat that with IV like solution. That's the treatment, and that's something that they should know. But they weren't offering treatment for that. They weren't going to offer anything, and were really just ready just to send me out of the hospital really dizzy and woozy, which is to me an ethical concern. Like I would never have sent a patient out like that. That's just me. I wouldn't have done that. I would have advocated for that patient, as is the ethical thing to do, and not just said, oh, well, we discharged you, and you're, I don't know. I would have, yeah, I would have done it differently is what I'm trying to say. I don't know how much things have changed now, but I just wish they would change in different ways sometimes, that like in better ways, like maybe they don't have like the whole scope in the ED of what to do to treat somebody who's having an acute like POTS like flare, and who potentially needs IV fluids, like. But I feel like I've been treated there before for POTS, like with IV fluid. So I know that they know, or at least some of them know. And I don't know, I just feel like I wouldn't have treated a patient that way. And and it just didn't feel good to be treated that way. That's all. And I'm glad I'm home, but my neck is very stiff. And hopefully it doesn't take me as long to recover. And I did talk to my doctors, or a doctor, an on-call doctor at my doctor's office, and they said that I actually have an appointment with my doctor tomorrow. So if the dizziness thing worsens or it doesn't go away, or I worsen or whatever, I can talk to her about it. And I'm also going to talk to her about the concussion thing, like the I don't know. I feel like that's unusual. And maybe it did change, but it just seems unlikely to me from what I recall from training. So, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm curious if it has changed, like why it changed, why they changed that, like what the medical reasoning was for them to stop evaluating for concussions and to stop like treating concussions and telling people that they have a concussion, which is a brain injury. So, which can cause a lot more than just nausea and dizziness. So, I'm very curious to understand why they don't do that anymore. Because it would be something important for a patient to know that, like, if they have a concussion, especially if later, like, they start developing other things like memory loss, trouble finding words, like trouble, like confusion, etc., and so on. That seems important for a patient to know, to be able to like track, okay, well, I had a concussion here, and for like medical purposes, like for that person to know that their new that the cognitive issues that they might be facing are potentially related to the concussion, and so that they can actually get supports for that, because there are supports for that, and it's not like all concussions are the same. And some concussions, like, even if they are minor, cause big, like a big impact in a person's life. And so I'm just really curious, but I'm going to go now because my neck is really stiff and my arm's getting tired, and I'm done. And I'm going to drink some water and try to attend to these dogs because you're wanting me, and tend to everybody here, and then try to lay down for a bit. Hoping this doesn't worsen or last long, because these neck sprains or muscle spasms or ouch, Brinkley, come on, they don't feel good. So they're great. All right, that's all.